and logo. Like thinking about your logo, right? And thinking about your name of your brand. This is totally my kind of humor. And I want people to know that I'm a little goofy and silly and funny and maybe kind of like, and then I also do writing, what my name is. It does a lot of, it works really hard for who I am and what I do. And then there's like a little bit like behind the logo, like it's the right is elevated because I elevate the copywriting. That's kind of like the concept behind it. So just normally I wouldn't give that little spiel, but we are doing branding. So I thought I'd give you a little insight on my brand. Okay. So give you a little background on my biz and what I'm doing. So Lydia Writes Good. We are an intentionally small creative studio with an energetic style and human-centric voice. We have a deep love for doing uber strategic work delivered in a killer creative package. We are committed to creating disruptive advertising and marketing for good businesses in our community and around the world. So what we do, copywriting, concept development, graphic design, creative direction, art direction, content and brand strategy, what we're going to talk about today, project management, and digital marketing. So lots of marketing, advertising. I am like the creative side of things. So I'm in there like designing stuff. A little background about me. I went to school at Kendall College of Art and Design. I have a degree in graphic design. As I was there, I had a professor that was like, yo, you're really good at writing. Have you ever thought about like copywriting? So that's something that I ended up pursuing and then like worked in for 10 years at like big agencies and little boutique shops, and then at in-house at like Meyer and a few other places. So, and now I got my own thing going on. So some past clients, just to give you a little like idea of who I work for and have done work for. Cheez-It, Viva, paper towels, Scott toilet paper, very exciting stuff. I was working at a big agency, like tweeting for toilet paper, just kind of like weird job. Advertising is so weird. Hush Puppies, I do a lot of work for them. I'm actually going to show you a little case study from their stuff. Meyer, Libman, Meyer Gardens, like the foundation part of that. Do some work for Rebel, if you're familiar with the little gift shop in Grand Rapids. Shouldn't say little because they're like really killing it and doing amazing stuff. And just like a big cross section of really fun, unique clients. And then lots of like smaller things too. I love working with especially women and non-binary owned businesses and working with queer owned businesses, and just kind of doing stuff that's like more locally based in Grand Rapids too. So that's really fun. This is our team. That's me there on the screen and here. But just to give you an idea of who's working, and we are very intentionally small so that things don't get too big and too messy. And when you add more people, it just becomes a lot. It becomes more expensive. It becomes, and we want to serve our clients in a great way, with kind of our small team, our nimble team. So I'm the creative director and owner. I'm the Lydia of Lydia Writes Good. I write, I design, I do like lead our creative team. So I bring in other designers and kind of contract that way. If there's something that I feel like I can't execute correctly, and it's a look that we want to do, I'll bring people in instead of hiring designers to work directly with me. 10 years of experience as an agency and in-house writer and designer. Megan is my favorite person ever and is my coworker. She's a studio manager and she does strategy. So she basically does everything I don't do. I'm creative. She's like more Virgo type A energy, where she's like in the spreadsheet, planning stuff, billing people, and then, doing all that kind of good stuff. She has 15 years of experience working for some of the top ad agencies in the state, and she just joined me 2 months ago. So I'm really excited to have her. So that's just a little bit about me and what I do. Now I'm going to take you to school and we're going to do some branding basics. So I think there's like this whole thing, like branding is such a buzzword, right? You got to have a brand, you got to have a logo, you got to do this, you got to do that. But like what is actually branding? There's like a lot of different schools of thought. I'm going to give you what I think, what kind of like I have, what I teach my classes at Kendall. And so this is legit the textbook definition from Designing Brand Identity, which is the book that I teach from when I'm teaching. So it's like, it is very textbook and long, which is not my jam. I love to like break things down and like, okay, what are you actually saying? But I'm going to read through that because we are doing a little schooling right now. So as competition creates infinite choices, companies look for ways to connect emotions with customers, become irreplaceable, and create lifelong relationships. A strong brand stands out in a densely crowded marketplace. People fall in love with brands, trust them, and believe in their superiority. How a brand is perceived affects its success, regardless of whether it's a startup, nonprofit, or product. So, okay, cool. Like thank you, Elena. That's nice. But like, what does that really mean? So I'm not a huge Jeff Bezos fan, but this quote is like amazing when it comes to branding. I love to think about this, like your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. So like I'm hoping that when I leave the room, people are like, oh my gosh, she's so fun, she's so funny, she's so quirky, look at her green hair, she's weird. That's like what I want people to say about me, right? And like when you start thinking about your brand like that, like what do you want people to say about your brand when they're, if that's your candle company or your like cleaning service that you provide or your ad agency or whatever it is. So what I love to think about a brand as is an emotional experience. Something that we like really focus on, Megan and I at Lydia Writes Good, is this idea that like there's a lot of emotion attached to marketing and advertising. Like when things are very businessy and like it sounds like you're a bot, like no one wants to listen to you, right? No one wants to talk to you. No one wants to read that. They're not interested in that. So it's connecting this emotional idea. So a brand is the total experience as perceived by those it seeks to motivate, which basically means it's not about how you want your brand to be seen. It's about connecting your brand to how people see themselves. So like we are playing some real like strategy head games here of like how, this is a reflection when you think about it, like in the feminist way, right? And like with like a feminist lens, we think about like a makeup ad, and it's when you break it down, the brand is like really saying like you're not worthy, right? You need makeup to look better. So that's the idea here, right? Is like, except love to do it in a more positive light than that. It's not about, how you want your brand to be seen. It's like people are going to infer what they're going to infer. So that's why you need to have a really strong brand. A brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or company. Like this is it to me. Like, and I am such a like love to like rely on my gut and super trust my gut. And I feel like that's led me kind of into like everything I've done. And even like jumping before I'm ready, right? And like if my gut says so, I'm gonna do it. So same thing with like a brand, right? Is like it's kind of just this feeling that you have about a product or a service. Like I trust them, I get it, like they get me, they understand like what I'm going through. So a brand is a gut feeling. We're breaking it all the way down. So if you just think of it like a brand is a feeling, it's a gut feeling. It's like the first initial meeting of like your first impression. It makes things a lot simpler. Obviously, there's a lot that goes with it, but we are talking about pure emotion and feeling here when we're thinking about branding. So, like I mentioned at the beginning, the term brand is often misused. It's been thrown around so much, so its meaning can change with context. So as a noun, I'm a word person, so of course we broke it down like this. That's my brand of choice, or I manage brands. As a verb, let's brand this campaign. We're gonna, give it an identity. And as an object, for many, the brand is the logo or the symbol, which is not just that. So the three primary functions of a brand are navigation. So this is helping people, consumers, find their way. If all jams on the shelf just said grape jam, strawberry jam, raspberry jam, and there was no kind of like, face to it, it would be really hard to pick something, right? Like, ooh, I want the one that's natural. I want the one that's sugar-free. I want the one that has like this beautiful like field on the label or whatever. So this, it like very in like a utilitarian sense, like serves as like a navigation of being like, yeah, I want to go to Target or I want to go to Meijer. There are those brands that differentiate it, right? Reassurance. So is this shit legit or not? Like, did somebody make this gin like in their bathtub, or did they make it, in a still and like it's an actual company, right? So this idea that, it legitimizes and gives you what you need for like to feel good about this product as the consumer. And then engagement. So customers identify with a brand, which is where we get into that like really emotional piece, right? It's like, ooh, I feel I am such like a Target bitch. Like I love Target. And I feel like every time Target, I'm there, I'm like, ooh, I'm like in my space. I love everything Target does. Or like, maybe like you're super into Nike. I love Nike because they do they're like trying to like do this social justice thing, right? They're trying to be more inclusive. They're trying to do this, or I love this, I love that, because and you're seeing this as like a huge trend in brands right now of like attaching themselves to different kind of causes. Like brands are no longer like apolitical. They are like, oh yeah, this is what we stand for. Oh yeah, this is what we, stand for. And you as a consumer, I know I do. I'm like, I don't want to like support Chick-fil-A, right? Because I know that they donated against gay rights and they're not into that. And like I'm queer, so okay, like we're not friends. So that, that kind of stuff starting to attach, and whether that's through like the feeling or the look or like what they're the causes they're behind, so important. And then, just thinking about this, like brands help consumers cut through the clutter. Good brands build companies where bad brands undermine success. If you have like a really great product, but like the label and the logo looks like it was made in like word art or whatever, people are going to be like, oh, this is a little sketch. Like, I don't know, should I pay $100 for this skincare product or whatever? So just thinking about that too, like a good brand can really build you up where a bad brand can pull you down. Okay, so talked about what branding is. Like, I love a little compare and contrast situation. So what is the difference between branding and marketing? We hear these two things a lot together, right? Branding is an element of marketing, but branding is the why, marketing is the how. Branding is long-term, marketing is short-term. So you're going to have like a little ad campaign, right? Is the marketing thing, where your logo should definitely stick around for more than a few years. Branding is macro, it's big, right? Marketing is micro, it's like the smaller kind of things that you do, like the bursts, the emails, where branding, like all that marketing ladders up to your brand, right? Branding is the reason someone buys, where marketing is the reason someone buys or first buys. So it's like, oh, I saw this ad for, chips, Pringles or something, and I didn't know they had this new flavor because I saw it on a commercial. Where you trust this brand, right? You're like, oh, there's that little smiley guy on the can. Once you pop, you can't stop. And that's, one of the reasons that you buy, right? Is like, it's like this legitimized brand. Branding builds loyalty, where marketing generates response. And then branding is the being, where marketing is the doing. So who are you? That's like what branding is answering, where marketing is like, here's how we're gonna show people who we are, right? Love this quote too. Products are created in the factory where brands are created in the mind. And I also want to say too, I meant to mention this at the beginning, but I am going to give you a little PDF at the end. So if you're like taking notes or whatever, we'll have some of that stuff for you too at the end. So if branding equals a feeling, then what the hell is a logo? So the logo is part of what we call the brand identity. So this is the visual and verbal expression of a brand, which just means like the words and the art, the graphics. So brand identity is like that tangible piece, and it appeals to the senses. It supports, it expresses, it communicates, it synthesizes, and it visualizes the brand. So your logo is just part of your brand identity, right? You have colors, you have typography that kind of goes along with that. You have this whole system. You have even like language and things that you want to say, like a tagline or like certain ways you talk, whether that's like, oh, we always talk in like a slang way, or we are very buttoned up and talk like we're having English tea or whatever. You can see it, this brand identity, you can see it, you can touch it, hold it, hear it, taste it, and sometimes even watch it move. It begins with a name and a brand mark and builds exponentially into a matrix of tools and communications. It increases awareness and builds businesses. So it's just all those kind of graphics and words coming together, and that branding is the feeling, that brand is the feeling that it's built on top of. Everybody doing good? Yeah. Okay. So this Milton Glaser is like if you haven't looked up his work, he has done like insane, amazing, pivotal graphic design work. Somebody to kind of like an icon, but a logo is the point of entry into the brand. So that idea of like your logo is just the beginning, right? It's just that like little tip of the iceberg into the brand. So if we are like thinking about, maybe you guys are here because you're like, ooh, I need a brand, or like I need a new brand, or like this shit sucks, my logo sucks, whatever. Or I don't know who I am. What is my business? What do I stand for? So these are like when you need a new brand identity. If you have a new company or a new product that needs something attached to it, if you're changing your name, if you're revitalizing a brand, so a brand refresh or a brand revamp or whatever you want to call it, there's a million different names for this. Revitalize a brand identity. So you're just like, my logo looks like it's from the 80s. Let's get it together and do something that looks, more current. Integration, if you're like integrating maybe some departments or kind of more like that corporate stuff happening, or like a company merger and you're becoming one entity. Like Meta for Facebook. We all love it. Thank you, Mr. Zuck. So the branding process, how does it work? There's 5 steps. You're gonna conduct research. So this is something that I think is so powerful and is often like just looked over. Like, look at what your competitors are doing. Think about like, okay, if I am a design shop in town, what are the other design shops in town doing? Who, the people like me, the people above me, the people I think are below me, the people, all your competitors, your whole thing. And then also look at like the world, like what are design shops in the world doing? And then also think about like just pulling maybe like a bunch of different like stats, or getting into whatever you want to get into to inform yourself. And then the second part is clarifying the strategy, which is what we are really going to focus on today. So hopefully, you've come with like some research, or you at least have like an idea of what else is out there. But we're going to like work on that to kind of inform your strategy today. And then design the identity. So that's like the piece of like, hey, we're doing the logo, we're doing the colors, all that good stuff. We're going to create, and then you're going to create touch points. So this can be like newsletters, website, anything and everything, signage that goes with it. And then number 5 is managing the assets. So this was legit like something I had one of my designers on my team at Meyer do. He would just review different like billboards that were sent that had the Meyer logo to make sure the usage was correct. That was like a big part of his job. Be like, okay, yes, that works. That's right. Or okay, no, that's wrong. So yeah, today we're going to focus on that step number 2, because I feel like that, you know, these first 2 steps are things that always get overlooked, and you have to have this solid foundation before you go into kind of the creation. Okay, guys. So now and I promise I won't be talking this much the whole time, but hopefully you're feeling like, oh, I'm understanding branding a little bit. Are we feeling like maybe, yeah, we are more informed about branding? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you for the thumbs up. So I want to show you 2 different kind of case studies or branding examples that I've done, that hopefully now that you are like a brand genius, right? You've got all these like good like foundational elements in place. We can kind of talk about like what these brands are in like an informed way, and like kind of these 2 different projects, which are on very different ends of the spectrum. So the first one is for Hush Puppies. And this, I worked as the copywriter and the big idea person on this, partnering with an art director at Hush Puppies. And she was like, she's the graphics, I'm the writing. So we were repositioning the brand from, you know, when you think about Hush Puppy shoes, you think about like old ass leather shoes that are stiff as hell, like church shoes. But we want them to be more like soft and snuggly. That's like the thing that we're going for. We want them to be trendy and fun and cool again. So this was some of their research that they gathered, and this is like what they put together, like their brand persona. Who is their brand? It's the purposeful optimist. So these are, you know, more female places, like they value comfort and style and quality. They're put together, maybe more classic kind of styling. They embrace color. They're dog lovers. They're optimistic. So just kind of giving you a good picture of who this person that is buying Hush Puppies or that loves Hush Puppies is. And then some kind of just thinking about like their differentiator, like being relevant, like what is going on. So this was during like hot and heavy pandemic times. It was scary. We were like, what the fuck is happening? Consumers are looking for security and happiness. When the category, so casual brown shoes just aren't as comfortable as sneakers and slippers. A lot of people are spending like their whole day in slippers now because you weren't leaving the house, right? I know I was like living in my Crocs, which my husband thinks are disgusting, but you know, whatever. And then the brand. So like, who is the brand? Hush Puppies has a lot of legacy to them. So it was born in a post-war depression and brought positivity to the world. And lots of color at that time too. They were the first shoes to ever make like super fun, colorful shoes. So the big idea that we came up with off of this kind of strategy is called foot hug. So we go through lots and lots of like, I'm writing like freaking beautiful mind type stuff, just like all over, thinking, looking, researching. And so at the time, like, you know, you would watch, I think this kind of started as the idea of like, you'd watch a show during the pandemic and you'd see people in like a room together and you'd be like, whoa, what are you doing? You guys are crazy. So that idea of like this hugging as the pandemic is ending, like seeing people hug is like, whoa, okay, that's really going to stop people in their tracks. And then we looked at like the research behind hugging, and like we need this family therapist, Virginia, says we need 4 hugs a day for survival, 8 hugs a day for maintenance, and 12 hugs a day for growth. So if you're not getting your hugs in, you know, you need a hug from your shoe. And so Hush Puppies, because they are so soft and snuggly, cute, casual, classic, cushy, cozy, comfy, whatever you want to say, they're like a hug, but for your feet. with our patented hug-like comfort. Sliding your little tootsies into a pair of hush puppies will make you come down with a sudden case of the warm and fuzzies. Show your feet a little love. So it's just like kind of our setup for the whole new repositioning. So we go into like Laura put together this kind of color palette. We're starting to see some of that brand identity, right? We are keeping the logo the same. We're just kind of changing like the direction that we want people to see us in, and the repositioning the position we want people to see us in. So here we're seeing, you know, lots of snuggly, soft sweaters. You're seeing this kind of more muted color palette. You're seeing people together. And then kind of what does that look like at, you know, this took like a year to put together. It's not, it seems so like quick here, like, oh, look, and there it is. But like it was, you know, very laborious and lots happening. But and then like, what does that look like? What does the copy like come together saying like hugs over heels, or if hugs were a shoe? And you can see like, you know, these images, they went and shot a bunch of stuff that like fits the new brand and has the colors and shoes that hug you back, like lines like that. So we're using this language that really feels snuggly too, in a way. And that's like the magic of copywriting, right? Is like that you can capture this emotion, this gut feeling of like, when I look at these pictures, I'm like, ooh, snuggly. And that's like what we want you to feel immediately. So a little more, it's like a big billboard that was in New York. But you can see like some of the language coming to life, and that imagery and the super softness and the very tactile kind of feeling. We also did some really cool ASMR. If you're not familiar with that, what that is, that's like those people that like whisper into the microphone and it makes you feel like tingly inside, but not in like a sex way. Like just very soft. So we did some of that stuff too. And then like breaking it down even more, loafer love, like into specific products. This is the Cora loafer. And then like, what are the things that like back it up? What are these kind of proof points, right? It's got extra cushion. You can see the little cushion back there, that little pillow. It's very soft and flexible materials, and it's all day comfort. So that's how this like, you know, and then hopefully consumers look at it and be like, oh, Hush Puppies, that's the brand that's like the hug, right? So that's the whole idea there, right? Is this repositioning. So then the other one I want to show you guys is, which is more of like a traditional kind of rebrand. If you're familiar, if you're in Grand Rapids or West Michigan, Big O, it used to be called Big O Cafe. We actually did a name change for them too. They hired me to come in and like this is like a shitty basement pizza joint, right? It's kind of just like, pizza, okay, cool. It's like downtown. Yeah, I'll go to it like when there's like a hockey game and I can't get into like the other restaurant down the street. So they want to make it into more of like a hip hangout with like really great food, known for like their food, and they get great wine list. So, and great cocktails. So we renamed it to Big O Pizza and Booze. So this is where they were. This is their logo. Check out this sick drop shadow, guys. Okay. And you can see kind of, you know, it's not even consistent. That's another thing thinking about as we go into the identity, right? Is like this consistency across mediums. So I created, which is what we will be doing at the end of this time together, is creating a brand blueprint. So we'll go more deep into this, but we have our purpose, we have our promise. So your purpose is very like functional. Like, what do? We want to serve great pizza with great drinks and great customer service. What's our promise? This is a little more emotional, right? I'm going to create a cool, comfortable, and fun place to hang out that's known across the city for really good pizza, a wine list, and cocktails. And then your pillars. So these are the things that your brand kind of aligns with. You're hip, you're really effing good, right? So everything you do is going to be really good, really top notch. We're going to get the best ingredients. And then you are a mainstay. So talking about like they've been around since the 90s in Grand Rapids. And like that is something that we want to make sure that we understand. People are like, this is a Grand Rapids classic. So then the personality, which is like really going to come out in like kind of the words and images, yeah. Laid back, unpretentious, and upscale dive. So we put together a mood board, which is basically just pulling images from like wherever. This is some stuff I use like Pinterest or this site called Design Inspiration, or anything I see. I even have like, I take pictures on my phone all the time of cool stuff I'm seeing. And then started to put together a color palette that felt like that kind of lines up with that like mainstay idea and like very pizza joint-esque. And then went into some logo development. So we had the strategy and we're like, okay, well, if we go back to our blueprint, we want it to be hip, we want it to be really good, we want it to be a mainstay, we want it to feel upscale dive, we want it to feel unpretentious and laid back. So starting to think about that as we kind of did some logo work. These are a bunch of sketches. This is like how I, develop a logo, is tons and tons of sketches and then kind of culling it down from there. And then this is what came out of that. So a lot different, still in that circle, right? Still that same kind of like circular vibe, but way different vibe here, right? Like it feels like laid back and cool and fun and a little more hip and trendy. And all this stuff is subjective too. And it just depends on like what you and what the client think, if you're making work for them or making work for yourself or whatever. But you want to use some cues like and just think through every single design piece that you're doing. So then thinking about like I redesigned their menu for them, which is like a kind of classic like pizza place menu that's just on like a piece of paper that serves as a placemat. And even like we want this to be kind of more fun, right? So we're using some language that's like share or don't, we're not your mom, fine, do it yourself. When you're like building your own pizza, cheesy bread with like a million exclamation points and salads. So just kind of like seeing that brand all the way through, right? We want it to be like appealing to who our target is. And then just some more stuff. You see the new signage, some little Instagram things that they're using. I did some custom illustration for it and really just kind of feeling that more laid back vibe. Okay, so now guys, it's time for you to do some work. So building your brand, we have 3 blocks of a brand strategy. We're going to go through all 3 of those together. I'm going to give you a little time to work within each. And obviously tell you what kind of each block means and what it is. So number 1, this is developing a brand fan or creating your brand's persona. So it's not like your demographic, right? It's not the people that you're going after, but this is the embodiment of your brand. Number 2 is the key problem. So what problem does your brand solve? And number 3 is the brand idea. So this is like your differentiator. How do you solve that problem? Like what's the answer to that problem that you're solving? And how are you truly different and unique? So getting into creating a persona. All right. So this is like a shit ton of text, but and you'll get this too if you are working on your own brand stuff, so you can kind of answer all these questions, because obviously we can't answer all these questions in like the 45 minutes we have left. But these are some questions that I like to ask myself as we are defining kind of your brand persona and who this brand really is as a person. I actually, even with clients, will love to like give this person a name. So like, Samantha. And we will be writing social copy and say, would Samantha really say that? Wouldn't she say it more like this? Like, would Samantha actually like do that? Or would Samantha post this? Or so that's like a way you can do that too, and like take it even one step further. But I love to ask like some lifestyle questions that are more than just like age, race, and all that kind of like bland stuff. Like, let's really get into it. And then asking the big questions. So like some lifestyle questions like, what are their hobbies? What shows or movies? Like, who are they following on Instagram? Like, think about who this brand, this person that loves your brand, and this like your brand, who would they follow on Instagram? And then the big questions. So like getting into the real shit, like the therapy stuff. So what are their life goals? What are their big fears? What do they believe in? What do they care about the most? Are they happy? Why are they happy? Are they struggling? Are they jealous of anyone? So like really getting into kind of like the psyche behind your brand and getting to know who he or she is or them. So then assigning some values and attributes. I love to do this where you like kind of go through and pick some stuff, or even, I mean, this list is small compared to all the amazing nouns that are out there, but these values just kind of give you a good idea of some things that could be a value, right? Like I feel like I value authenticity, right? I want to be my real self all the time. Or, you know, I really value pleasure or whatever. Weird one to pick, I guess the first one I saw. Anyway. And then going into personality, which this is like terrifying to look at, but lots of different adjectives, adverbs here. So, you know, there's ways to say stuff too, where it's like, maybe I'm outgoing, but I don't think I'm extroverted, right? And that kind of like thinking between those two spaces gives you something like why would you pick outgoing over extroverted, right? Like really thinking through like each word. So this is like, just to give you an example of who like I see my brand as, Lydia writes good values and attributes. So optimistic is a value, like optimism. And then I always want to have a positive attitude and try to like, even when shit sucks, try to have like a good positive attitude. I want to be open-minded. Something I value is like progressive thought and always being open to new ideas. Uninhibited. So like the idea of I'm crazy when I need to be, like I can just kind of not censor myself if that's what I want. And if I really need, I have a lot of passion, right? Collaborative, enthusiastic, fucking love my job, of what I do. And then holistic. So like thinking through the whole picture, right? Not just like, well, it's not just the picture, but it's the frame, how to hang it, and which wall it belongs on. So now it's your turn. I'm going to have you guys go through your brand or your personal brand, or who you are, even as a person, if you're like wanting to be a freelancer or whatever. And obviously we can't work through everything, but what are some hobbies? What does your brand do for work? What could their job be? What other brands does your brand fan like? So, you know, what are the things that they're into, or who are they following on Instagram, right? What are their life goals? What are their fears? And then 5 values and 5 personality traits of your brand fan. So I'm gonna give you guys like 10 minutes to kind of do that. And then I'll put out some music. We can work. If anyone has a question, feel free to drop it in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and ask me here. So go ahead and take a little time. Try not to blast you with my music. You got another 5 minutes, guys. How we doing, guys? Okay, we'll just end it on the song, you know. Um, so does anybody want to share what they came up with? Um, just a quick overview. You feel free to unmute yourself if you want to share. I know sharing is scary, but I've been talking so much, so
I can share.
okay, great.
My business is a jewelry business. I do custom jewelry. That's one of the things, but so wow, where do I start? Okay, so did I volunteer to share? No. So my brand fan, she has this particular person. She loves music. She loves the theater. She's a foodie. She likes culture.
Yeah.
She's a CEO or a high-level executive businesswoman. Some of the other brands that she likes might be like Hermes or Donna Karen, Yurman, custom designers as well, independent designers. She fears not succeeding. She has overcome obstacles of racism, sexism, in a male dominant industry. And some of her core values are fair. She's an advocate. She values education and community and honesty. and her traits, strong, funny, individuality. She's beautiful and she's unconventional.
Oh, I want to be her friend. She sounds awesome. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing. Does anybody else want to share quickly? I want to keep moving too, so we don't, we can do everything. But okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I know it's hard to share, but you have such a great foundation, it sounds like, to building this out even more. Okay, so part 2 here is identifying the key problem. So I'm actually going to share, this is a book that I freaking love. If you have not read it, it is called Obsessed. It is by Emily Hayward, and she worked at this ad agency called Red Antler. She did stuff for Casper, the mattress, like Allbirds, those shoes, stuff that's like very like industry like defining, and something that took like the industry and totally flipped it on its head. This book is like great. It's written in like normal language and not like super techie or marketing like stuff. So super easy to understand, even if you're like not a marketer. So this exercise comes from this book, and we're talking about the fear of death here when we are thinking about identifying our key problem, which seems very big and scary. But it is kind of a little, but not that bad. So I'm going to break down what this kind of idea is for Airbnb. And everybody knows what Airbnb is, right? Like, go on there and you can book a cool house to stay in, or a cool apartment or whatever, in whatever city you want to go to all over the world. So thinking about what is the problem that your brand is solving, and we're trying to distill that down to the very bottom, like as much as possible. And so this is like just asking tons and tons of questions. So Airbnb, what's the problem your brand is solving? Hotels are overpriced, generic, and unspecial. Agree, right? Like, there's not a lot of cool hotels out there. You have to pay a lot if you want to go and stay in the cool part of the city. Okay, so why does this matter? Well, people don't want to feel like tourists when they go to visit a new place, right? They want to feel like they want to see what the locals see. Okay, well, why does that matter? Why do people want to not feel like tourists? Well, because they want to have authentic experiences, right? Like, you want to like really live into it, right? And feel like you're genuinely experiencing a place. Okay, well, why? Because they travel to make their lives richer. So these authentic experiences are going to enrich their life even more. Okay, well, why? Because the moments we remember are not the mundane ones in front of the computer or doing laundry. It's ones where we truly feel like we're part of something, where we belong to something bigger. You can see this like emotional thing coming through here, right? Which we talked about as a brand as an emotion. Okay, well, why does that matter? Like, who cares about these like, special moments? Why not just sit in front of the computer? Well, because we're all going to die one day. And you have one life, right? And like, that's kind of the idea here, is that like, we're breaking down the problem that your brand is solving to its very, very core essence, like innate human fear, which seems, wild, but it will help you gain so much perspective on who your brand is and what you really do that's special. So I did it for my brand, which I feel like I could go deeper here, but just to give you guys a good idea, because Airbnb is huge, right? What about little Lydia Writes Good here in West Michigan? So what's the problem my brand is solving? I feel that it's hard to work with a big ad agency or design studio because they can be intimidating, costly, and full of bullshit. So why does that matter? because I believe all brands of all sizes should have access to great creative, and great work doesn't have to be a tedious, lengthy, or crazy expensive process. Well, why does that matter? Because great creative makes the world a better place to live in. Well, why does that matter? Because the world is more beautiful and harmonious that way. And then why does that matter? Well, we only live once, so let's live in this beautiful world, right? So I think, could go even deeper there, but this hopefully gives you a good idea of like how to do it for maybe not a huge giant corporation. So hi, it's your turn. I'm going to have you kind of think about what's the problem your brand is solving, which might take you a little bit to even think of, and then ask you to kind of like dive deeper. Why does that matter? Why does that matter? Why does that matter? So once you think you've identified the absolute deepest consumer problem that your business is solving, go a level deeper. So usually it's going to result in like the fear of death or the fear of being alone. So you're gonna get your therapist on the phone, girl, because time to really sink into that. So I'm gonna give you guys like 5 minutes to kind of explore this a little bit. I do not think you'll be able to like finish this in 5 minutes, but hopefully you can kind of establish what your problem is and maybe like 1 or 2 levels there. So hit me up with any questions.
The first time I tasted somebody else's spit, I had a coughing fit. I mistakenly called them by your name. I was let down, it wasn't the same. I'm doing fine, trying to derail my one-track mind, regaining my self-worth in record time. But I can't help but think of your other England bed that was mine. Am I masochist, resisting urges to punch you in the teeth, call you a bitch and leave? Why did I come here to sit and watch you stare at your feet? What was the plan? Absorb your guilt and shake hands. I feel no need to forgive, but I might as well. But let me kiss your lips, so I know how it felt. Pay for my coffee and leave before the sun goes down. Walk for hours in the dark, feeling all hell. You got a 9 to 5, so I'll take the night shift, and I'll never see you again if I can help it. In 5 years, I hope the songs feel like covers, dedicated to new lovers. You got a 9 to 5, so I'll take the night shift, and I'll never see you again if I can help it. In 5 years, I hope the songs feel like lovers, dedicated to new lovers.
All right, guys. Sorry for all the sad songs, It's feeling very moody today, very brooding. So how'd that go for you? Anybody have anything they want to share? Any deep, dark fears that anyone would like to share?
I can go, Lydia.
Okay.
My name is Mabel, and I am the owner of Spark Joy in Michigan, which is a home organizing consultancy using the Marie Kondo method.
Awesome.
Here are the problems that I solve. My clients can't find things when they need them. They have visual clutter. They have no time to enjoy home and their family, and they always feel stressed and overwhelmed. Well, why does that matter? Because we want to be efficient. We want our home to look good. We want to spend quality time with family. We want to feel calm and in control. And why does that matter? Because we value time and like to be prepared. Because home is the most important place on earth. Because we don't want to miss out on the good things in life. That's all I got.
That's great. Yeah. I think that there's such a direct connection here, and I can feel it, going even deeper. That it is like, an organized space, you can connect that to time, and like time is short, right? And like this idea of be able to pull that whatever you need off the shelf immediately. I think you're right on track. It sounds great. Yeah. Cool. Is this helpful, guys? Like, is everybody just kind of putting your mind in a different place maybe about branding?
Yeah, super, super helpful.
Great. Okay. Yeah, I love this exercise. And if you get a chance to read this book, Obsessed, which will be in the PDF, like the title of it, it's a great one, or even audio book,
Lydia, I think the wildest thing for me is the problem that I want to solve for people is similar to the problem that I see about myself. Like when we talked about for my branding, I have so many different facets, right? And
Yeah.
So the main problem is being misunderstood when presenting your business or your what do you actually do, right?
Totally.
But that's the problem I want to solve too. I think that's fascinating. So just breaking it down, that's really interesting. And I don't know why that didn't click before, but yeah, this is, I think a lot of people have really gotten a lot from this tonight.
Good. Yeah, I know I feel that same way of like, I have always been kind of this like rebellious spirit, and that's something I want to do with my work is like, I want to rebel against like the bullshit that's out there, right? And like make something that is different and equitable and accessible and things like that. So
So
Yeah.
you drew me in as your client, right? That same, right? Do you know that
Yeah.
exact same thing? I think our first discussion was, I just want to rebel against this. I don't want to be pigeonholed into one thing. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So exactly the problem you wanted to solve is who you're drawing to you.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I know we got 15 minutes left. There's one more little section and then the brand blueprint, which will be your homework. No grades or anything, but you know, if you want to do it, you can. So going into this last piece is defining your differentiator. So this is really, how does your brand answer the key problem? You need to differentiate your brand in the marketplace. And this isn't something like I'm a woman-owned business because hello, we're all, you know, there's like 20 of us in here, right? But it's your superpower. It's your intersection of things that you do really well. It's how you'll connect emotionally to your consumers. It's authentic and you should come from the heart, the gut, or your brain, or all three. I think one of my differentiators is like that we write and design and do strategy, and not many in our industry, like in a small agency, can do that well. So a differentiator is not our employees set us apart. We're trusted advisors to our clients. We strive for excellence. We provide fantastic customer service. We have a oh my gosh, I can never say this word, proprietary process. It's like, so it always trips me up. That shit is boring. Okay. Everyone wants employees to be great, that everyone wants to be a trusted advisor to their client. Everyone wants to be, you know, have this like great process that they're like talking about, right? No, we need something that is different and unique and really sets you apart. It's that niche, and you only need one thing. Like that's the thing too, is like it doesn't have to be a million different things, just one. So your differentiator is a specialization in an industry. It's a specialization in serving a specific role within your client's organization. It's a specialization in a particular service. It's a focus on understanding a particular audience. So maybe you like, ooh, I really like, I'm making jewelry that's like for millennials, right? Or it's a different business model. It's special and unique. And sometimes you can combine these, right? Like I'm doing my specialization is writing and design in, but that's like my service, but I'm doing it in an industry in like a small ad agency. So like you're kind of combining those two things, right? So the three things a differentiator should be is it should be true. So no lying. Differentiators should have to be grounded in reality, like be real with yourself. It has to be relevant. So, you know, thinking back to that Hush Puppies example, right? It's like, that was like thinking about COVID and like all these things, and like that was going on in the world, and we could not have come up with that idea without COVID happening, right? So if it doesn't matter to your clients, it doesn't matter. It needs to be relevant to your clients and to your group that you're marketing towards. And then it needs to be provable. So anyone can claim quality or equality or whatever excellence. You have to prove it. Like you have to have the stuff to back it up. So, you know, people are willing to pay up to 16% more for product or service that leverages its differentiation. So the shit like really does matter. So what the big guys are saying, just some examples here, and like, you know, it's not going to come this easily to you. This is something you need to marinate on for a long time. But Apple, think different, right? You don't see anything about computers or anything in there, which is very interesting, I think. Target, expect more, pay less. eBay, the world's online marketplace. Unilever, adding vitality to life. FedEx, the world on time. I love this one because it's like, I mean, all these are like, you know, 4 words or less. And you're like, you're delivering across the world without saying, hey, we deliver across the world and we're always on time. We're quick, we're efficient. Harley Davidson, rider passion. Disney, make people happy, which is so simple, right? but you can start thinking about, if you think about Disney with like that why it matters kind of thing, that I feel like is very easy to get to, like, yeah, happiness, because like we have one life to live, right? Virgin Mobile, live without a plan. GE, that's like a true differentiation, right? There's no plan, which I think is maybe a little outdated now, but you get the idea. GE, imagination at work. Method, people against dirty. And that's like taking a stand, right? Like this kind of political thing. Coca-Cola, happiness in a bottle. So, I was going to have you guys do this, but I think because we're like coming up on time, this will have to be a little homework situation for you too. And again, this will be in that PDF that Women Who is going to send out. But I talk too much, probably, like usual. That's my brand. So, I'm going to challenge you to really think about your differentiator, which will come maybe from some of that, like why it matters, like really digging into that and like really thinking about who this person is that your brand is. And then it should be no longer than 7 words. And I'm going to challenge you that if you can't fit it in 7 words, you need to come back and like do more work on like discovering what your brand is. So then putting it all together, which this will be your homework, is the brand blueprint. So this becomes like exactly what it sounds like, right? It's your blueprint for your whole brand, your whole thing. And this is what you can refer back to all the time when you're like creating graphics, when you're writing something for social or for your website. Like, does this sound like the characteristics? So this is kind of the defining stuff for each of these. I love to build these from the bottom up. So thinking about characteristics, that is the brand personality serves as a filter for the brand expression, in influencing. So this is your characteristics are like the personality, right? So this serves as a filter for the brand expression, influencing how the brand comes to life experientially for its various audiences. So this is like basically what I think of as like how you're going to talk, like how would this person talk, what is their demeanor, and then your pillars are one step up from that. That's your brand's core DNA. So this describes an essential equities and outlines the primary principles for brand activation. So what are the 3 big things that your brand hits on? Like, what are those things that are going to be in every single thing you talk about? And then working up to the purpose and the promise. The purpose is that very kind of utilitarian, like, here's what we do. We sell pizza and beer, and it's really good. And then the promise is kind of like why we do that, right? It's like the more emotional, kind of like strategic position, summarizing the visions and highest order value proposition that makes consumers care. So like, why do we care, right? And so you can see that kind of like why it matters thing happening here. So taking back to that Big O brand blueprint example, we have, your purpose. We serve pizza and beer with top-notch customer service. We promise to always make it cool, and it's going to be like known across the city, and it's great pizza and cocktails. So our DNA, we're always going to do something. We're up on the food and drink trends. We cater to a more trend-forward foodie clientele. After church crowd need not apply. So we're not like trying to bring in, families. And I think there's something like that. My business coach told me actually that I love, and it's like, you aren't for everyone, and your brand isn't for everyone. If you're trying to market to everybody, it's not going to work because you're going to be bland. No bland brands, guys. Okay. We are interesting, have a big personality, and you have to go hard on that. You have to like really be out there, to kind of like show off that personality, because people are maybe just seeing one social post or just seeing one little thing. They're not seeing everything you post all the time, unless you're paying millions of dollars to like kind of get it out there, right? Because the algorithm is evil. But I'm thinking about this DNA piece too, really effing good. So really effing good pizza, really effing good salads, really effing good wine, really effing good cocktails, really effing good customer service. So everything we do is like very good, right? It's like the best of the best. And then it's a mainstay. Big O has been serving great pizza to Grand Rapids for nearly 30 years. Customers have always been able to depend on us to deliver something delicious, fun, and a little bit different. And then the personality, how do we talk? How do we like kind of put our graphics together? We're laid back. We have like a very like the dude from Big Lebowski vibe, right? And that's kind of where that hand-drawn feeling comes in. It feels like very like down to earth and like cool and like approachable. And then your personality, number 2 is unpretentious. So yes, we're cool. No, we're not going to wear a leather jacket and lean against the jukebox. Big O is unassuming and totally unpretentious. So we're cool, but we're not going to tell you that we're cool. And then we're an upscale dive. So kind of this like divey neighborhood joint, right? And there's a lot that kind of goes along with that. So your homework, fill out the brand blueprint using the stuff we uncovered today. You'll want to do more work there too. You know, this is a process that like I will spend a day, 2 days with clients doing, or, you know, doing myself and from like the intake I've gotten from clients. So this is something that really is, like takes a lot of time and a lot of thought and really dives deep. So your differentiator will inform both your purpose and your promise. So make sure you kind of do that first. And that's it.
Lydia, we have a question from the chat.
Yeah.
Let me get back to it real quick. Sorry.
I've got it up.
Okay.
So Ashley asked, does each personality tie back to the pillar above it, or there's just 3 pillars and 3 characteristics?
Great question. No, they do not tie to each other. They can be separate of each other. Although, you know, you're going to have these kind of 6 things that you'll want to work in harmony, but it's not like one and then the next. But underneath each of your, underneath each of like these pillars, you want to have some proof points that kind of back it up too. So thinking about like what we talked about with the differentiator, right? Is like, we've got these pillars. We can say we are hip, but prove it. Like, how are we hip? Okay, we're, you know, on the cutting edge of food trends, right? Or whatever. So that might help inform too, like what kind of, like how you want to form these. But no, like hip and laid back do not like tie together at all. They're kind of separate of each other. Good question though. And yeah, happy to take any questions, anything anyone wants. Also, this is my info too. You can always email me. You can hit me up on Instagram. You can get me whatever way you want to get me. But I'm happy to hang on for a while or whatever, however long you want to, Rhiannon and Maria.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, you can throw them in the chat, or you can really feel free to unmute yourself and ask Lydia anything specifically that you might want to know about your brand and your business. You're probably not the only one with that question, so.
No dumb questions. I'm asking a million. I call myself queen of questions, always asking questions.
So I had this thought and you kind of hit on it, but I think the greater question is, how do you overcome the fear of the specificity, right? Because when I started making jewelry, I started because I'm a plus size Black woman and I couldn't walk into a store and find something that was proportionate to my size, that was stylish enough that everybody else wasn't going to be wearing at the same party, right? So over the next 20 years that I've been doing this, I've tried to morph this into whatever everybody else said that it needed to be in order to demand the price that I should be demanding for one-of-a-kind handmade work. So, but when you said I'm not for everyone, that is so 100%, but it feels so crunchy, like so fucking crunchy, like, oh my God, like what retail person in their right mind would not want anyone to come and buy their stuff? But in reality, that's not why I started making jewelry. And my customer is a very specific customer, but I've been really afraid to take that leap. So how do you like get over yourself? How do you do that essentially?
Yeah. Such a good question, because I have battled with this for so long. I worked in corporate and I do not look corporate. I have tattoos all over. I have green hair. I'm freaking a plus size woman. I'm queer, like there's all these things that are like, just like adding up to that, but I think it is really like, once you find this strong brand of who you are, you are going to be able to live into that. And I think there's like this idea of niching down, right? And this is something that I hear a lot of like business coaches talk about and people talk about, like, and finding your niche. And really, I think there is a niche. It sounds like you have a niche, right? Because you made the jewelry for yourself. So other, Black plus size women, like, is that your niche, right? And are you marketing towards that? And I think that, and something I've seen is that when you live into that, like, truth of who you really are and go all in, the other people from the margins that are around that, me, like a plus size white woman, would be like, oh shit, like, that's cool. Like, maybe it wasn't made intentionally for me, but like, I'm seeing it and I'm loving it. And I'm loving like this authenticity. I think there's like no better thing than to be like authentic and like you go out there and you say, this is jewelry for fat Black women. Like, fuck yeah. And then all the fat Black women in the world are going to be like, that's for me. That's me. I'm here. I'm a loyalist. And there are kind of like, not getting into like the too much of like the minutia of like branding, but there are kind of like these rings, right? Of like, you have your central customer, and then people that kind of come around that. But when you're really niching down and living into that and truly being authentic, people can smell bullshit from a mile away, right? Like, they're gonna know like, oh, she's just trying to like market to like everybody. I like, okay, and it's not special, but it is special, right? So it's being special, being unique. And there is part of it that's just like, it's kind of like this fuck you attitude of like, hey, sorry, like, this might not be for you. And I know that was hard for me to overcome, but it just kind of, as I got like these people that are loyalists, or like people that are cheering me on, and I'm making work that like, I make a lot of work that's like very progressive, or like has a lot of swearing or things like that. That's like, stuff like that. And that, alienates half of the country, or like even more, because we look who our last president was, right? And that is really interesting, right? To be like, yeah, I'm here, I'm me, you take it or leave it, bitch. So I know I just like talked a lot, but I think there's like this niching idea, and also like, I am who I am. Love it or leave it, baby.